Hello, everyone. Welcome back to I Could Be Wrong, our NFL season predictions for 2021. I'm joined by my brother, Justin, as always. Good to see you, bro.
Good to see you too, man.
All right, so today we're going to go through our division picks, our division winners. We're going to go predict our season award winners, our individual award winners. Go into our conference championship matchups as well, give our Super Bowl predictions, and then throw out some bold predictions. Hopefully have some good conversation along the way, as usual. And we'll go ahead and jump into it, right into our division winners, starting off with the AFC East. For this one here, obviously, we both have Buffalo at the top. I'll let you go first, kind of give your rundown of what you're thinking about this division, and then I'll follow up.
Yeah, I've got Buffalo number one. Josh Allen, clear leader there. I've got him as the MVP this year. In fact, they're talented on offense, defense. They added a few weapons throughout free agency in the draft. I think they got Sanders, an additional wide receiver to pair with Diggs and Beasley and Gabriel Davis, who are all, in my opinion, really good wide receivers, and Josh Allen just makes them that much better. I put Miami above New England here because I think Miami does have a little bit more continuity in their system right now. They have a good defense. I'm not sure really what the popular opinion is about Brian Flores. I think he's a heck of a coach. He does seem to find a way to get the most out of his players, and Tua looked really good in the preseason, save for one red zone interception in that first preseason game. But he played lights out, high completion percentage. He seemed to have a much better grasp of the offense. That could change, Of course, I could be wrong. New England, has the best coach in football, but I just believe that with a rookie quarterback now, we know he's going to be starting, and then their receivers, they're not really big household names. They always have a good defense. Definitely, they usually have a pretty good run game. So it's all about continuity for me with them. If they can develop chemistry and continuity early, then I definitely think they have the talent and the coaches to make a push for that second seed. I don't think they can beat Buffalo out quite yet. And then the Jets, they're young, they got a new coach, and they're just rebuilding. So that's why I've got them there in last.
Yeah, I agree with Buffalo. Obviously, I mean, I think they are the class of the division with the roster they have. Josh Allen is going to be in the MVP conversation, of course, if not win it. So I think that's a no-brainer. I think most people, even the so-called experts, like we talk about, have Buffalo winning that division. I agree also that Brian Flores is a great coach. I think that he's got something brewing in Miami. But you pointed out, in most people's opinion, Bill Belichick is the greatest coach to ever coach football at any level. And I think that he knows what recipe works. Obviously, for 20 years, he had Brady. And when they first won their, first few Super Bowls, Brady was obviously not what he is now. He was kind of like Mac Jones, and that's why they were so excited to get him. I would probably have the same order you would have if they would have stuck with Cam Newton as their starter. But since they've decided to go and put all their chips in with Mac Jones, I think that they're going to rely on old Patriot football from the 2000s, 2001, 2003, where they're just running the ball, relying on the defense. They're not going to ask him to do too much until he's comfortable with it. And then, obviously we have the Jets. They're going to obviously, I think, be the worst team in the division. I think they will be competitive. As they go along, they'll get more competitive. If you're looking for a fantasy stud other than Josh Allen in this draft, I think that Zach Wilson is that dude. He can spin that ball.
Big time.
Like he can chuck that damn thing if you watched him. So I think that if you're looking for a fantasy guy, the Jets probably got one of the best options as far as quarterback goes, because they're going to be throwing a lot. But I think they're going to grow. They're, like you said, they're a young team. They've got to mature. They've got to go through their bumps and bruises like most young teams.
Yeah.
Got a brand new head coach. I think Robert Saleh is going to be a heck of a coach. Obviously, I love him when he was the D coordinator in San Francisco. But I think that, they got some growing pains to go through as well. I do have New England as my seventh seed. I have them as a wild card team as well. Again, just based off the fact that Belichick is that good of a coach, and he's going to put Mac Jones in positions where he can succeed and have the best chance to lead his team and not make mistakes. So that's why I've got those two flipped. But I think other than that, I agree with pretty much everything you said about this division. Let's go ahead and move on to our next division here. That one's pretty simple because we've got pretty much the same take on it. AFC North, again, this one here for me was a very tough division to kind of break down.
Super tough.
It's very competitive. If you take out Cincinnati and Joe Burrow coming back from injury, I think they're going to struggle a little bit. Their offensive line is not very good, but those other three teams are very good. Pittsburgh and Baltimore typically have championship caliber defenses every year. I think that's going to stay true again this year. I do have Pittsburgh making the playoffs because of a switch that happens at some point during the year, and I'll talk about more of that in my bold predictions. But I do have Pittsburgh making it as a wild card team. It was really tough for me to go between Cleveland and Pittsburgh because, again, they're all stacked. I just feel that I can trust Pittsburgh's defense more than I'll be able to trust Baker Mayfield. Although he's matured a lot, I think that's going to be the difference, and it's going to be the difference between Pittsburgh making the playoffs and Cleveland making the playoffs. So I got Baltimore. I think they're making a deep playoff run, not just winning this division, but I think they're going deep into January, maybe even February, as far as how long they'll play. I know they did lose J.K. Dobbins, but Lamar is their number one running back anyway, so they didn't really lose their number one running back. And Gus Edwards averaged 5 yards a carry throughout his career, and I think he's going to be able to step in and fill the role that J.K. Dobbins did pretty well. And, again, their defense is always stacked, and they're well coached, as we know. John Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in the NFL. So that's my take on this division. I'll bounce it over to you and see what you got.
Yeah, I've also got Baltimore right there at number one. Combination of Lamar and the coaching and the scheme, those guys have a ton of talent over there. Their defense is phenomenal every single year under Coach Harbaugh. So I do have them there number one. I see Lamar Jackson going for his third season in a row, rushing over 1,000 yards, especially with the additional game. If the addition of Sammy Watkins could possibly push him over that 30 touchdown per year mark, that would be helpful. I think the last few years he's been over 20 TDs. Last year it was 26 TDs, and that was through the air. So, Lamar, he could progress this year. They did get an upgrade, and I know Watkins has been kind of a journeyman around the league, but he's a good receiver, and he could be really helpful for Lamar in the grand scheme of things. Cleveland, just like you, it was really, really tough for me to go and put Cleveland ahead of Pittsburgh or put Pittsburgh ahead of Cleveland. But what it all boiled down to is I think, Baker Mayfield brings a lot more to the table at this point in his career than Ben Roethlisberger does, because his ability to move the pocket, create plays with his legs. And then Cleveland's defense, I put them right up there with Pittsburgh. Myles Garrett's an animal. They've got a phenomenal defensive line. They've added some depth on their team. So I think the continuity, they have a lot of momentum from last year making the playoffs. They're excited. That was their first year making the playoffs. They have a lot to play for.
Yeah.
So that's why I put them above Pittsburgh. Could go either way. Honestly, either one of these teams, even with Baltimore, as much as I like Baltimore, I think either one of these three teams could finish number one, number two, or number three. They're that good. And Pittsburgh, I have them at number three. Of course, that's just based on how I feel now. I don't think Roethlisberger, is gonna see the sideline this year. Your bold prediction, I'll let you get to that, but unless there's an injury, I don't think he's gonna see the sideline, or unless it's coming off of a score, coming off of the field. But they're going to have a great season. Claypool, I'm looking to have a big season over there. He's going to score a lot of touchdowns, and their defense, as always, is really good. Cincinnati, I'd be curious to see, how they fare with Joe Burrow in a full season. They do have some talent at receiver, Boyd, Higgins, and Chase now. So, that could be a good receiving trio. Their offensive line definitely needs some work. Their defense needs some work. But, a good quarterback can mask up some deficiencies. And I'd be curious to see where they finish out the year.
Yeah, I agree with a couple of things you said there. Really, when it comes to Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh, you could pick any of those teams to win the division. Again, I based my difference between Pittsburgh and Cleveland off of I trust Pittsburgh's defense. They're really good. I think Ben Roethlisberger is going to be in better shape this year than he was last year. He had the off season and everything to kind of get in shape. Last year he was coming off his elbow injury, didn't have the ramp up of the preseason and everything like that. So I don't disagree that at this point in their careers, Baker Mayfield, it probably has the higher ceiling and can bring more to the table and do more. But there's something to be said for experience, and as we know, Ben's got a lot of that. And one thing we all know about Ben Roethlisberger, you can say what you want to say about him off the field and his personal, things and issues, but he is, quote unquote, if there is such a thing on a football field, he's a warrior. He's one of those dudes that's going to give everything he's got until the clock runs out and his team is no longer playing. So I think based off of that and pride and the fact that Cleveland did beat them last year, I think that they're looking to get a little bit of revenge, and they're going to be motivated, to come back and show that last year's start at 11-0 wasn't a fluke, and they're better than that wild card performance that they turned in. So, and to be honest with you, if you think about it, as bad as they started that playoff game against Cleveland with the turnovers and everything like that, they were still in the game until about halfway through the fourth quarter, and then they kind of just ran out of time. But they were still in the game after they kind of got their bearings and took that hit in the mouth from Cleveland. It was very competitive for the rest of the game, and one or two mistakes that Cleveland could have made, Baker didn't make them, and hopefully he continues to do that for Cleveland's sake. But had he had, a couple of those Baker Mayfield mistakes popped up in that game, we might have been talking about a different story as far as, the outcome. So I agree with you as well. Cincinnati, they're kind of like what we talked about with the Jets. They're still a young team. They've got some pieces, but they got a lot of work to do on both sides of the offensive and defensive line. They've got some work to do there. I'm really excited to see if Joe Burrow can play a whole season. I am excited to see what he can do with those receivers. He tends to be a guy that makes receivers better. He did that at LSU. He was doing that last year before he got hurt. And if he comes back and he's 100% healthy, I think that he continues to do that with that young core. And we may be talking about Cincinnati in the same light that we're talking about these other teams, next year or the year after that. So,
the AFC has been really strong the last few years.
Definitely. And this was a tough division to kind of pick. But again, I went with Baltimore just because overall they're well coached. I think they have the best quarterback in the division. And just their style of play is best suited for the weather that these teams are going to go through and things like that. I just think they're best suited. So that's why I went with Baltimore.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, cool. So that one, again, kind of, a lot of the same thoughts. We just got a few swapped out picks there. We'll jump over to the AFC South, which should be a pretty short conversation. I think this one is pretty much chalk for almost anyone that watches football. So we'll pop it over. As you can see, we both have the same exact order. So I'll kind of let you give your thoughts on it. The only difference I see here is you have the Colts as your wild card team, or one of your wild card teams, and I have only Tennessee making it because I don't think anyone other than the division winners coming out of here. So,
yeah, well, with Tennessee and Indy, I think I could flip-flop those guys one way or the other. Jacksonville and Houston, we know their status in the league. They're rebuilding. Houston, I don't know. I think they're in the process of tanking still. And going into rebuild mode. But nonetheless, Tennessee adds Julio. They still have Derrick Henry. They have all the pieces in place that they've had in the last few years. So that continuity should help them. And with Indy, their offensive line, they bring in Carson Wentz, who, for all the what's the word I'm looking for? For all the, bad talk surrounding him, I guess you could say, and all the smack talk surrounding Carson Wentz and his ability to be healthy. I'll tell you this, if the guy does stay healthy, everyone in the league, or at least in the AFC South, better watch out, because he could possibly be the best quarterback in that division. And Indy has one of the better defenses in that division, better offensive line. So Jonathan Taylor, he's a phenomenal running back. He's going into his second season, should be a lot more comfortable in that offense. They have, been injury bitten this preseason, with Wentz, Quentin Nelson, a couple of their other starters, their left tackle's injured, the backup left tackle's injured. They're waiting to get back off of injury. Eric Fisher, I believe. So, they have been bitten by injuries. That's why I actually have them in second right now. Otherwise, I would have probably had them in first over Tennessee. I do like Carson Wentz, a healthy Carson Wentz over Ryan Tannehill. Wentz has proven that he can sling the ball. He can, he's efficient and he can play. It's just a matter of being on the field, kind of like with the 49ers and Garoppolo, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Other than that, this division's not really tough to predict right now, based on it being top heavy. The two top teams are good and the two bottom teams are not good.
Yeah, I agree with that last statement for sure. Again, this is one that I agree you could flip flop the top two. I went with Tennessee based off the fact that Carson Wentz has shown that when healthy, you're right, he can throw the ball, he can be accurate, he can do a lot of things. He did have the 1 year where he was an MVP candidate until he got hurt.
He's been the MVP that year.
He probably would have won it. However, one of the things that continuously gets said is if Carson Wentz can get back to what he was, and what is starting to become the reality is that was the exception and not the expectation for Carson Wentz. Like, that was the outlier season. What we've really come to realize is he really doesn't stay healthy. He is injury prone. And that affects a lot of other things. Obviously, when he does come back or if he's playing hurt, he's not able to be as accurate as he has proven to be in the past. So, or in that one season and then the stint a little bit the next season until he got hurt again. So I think that although, you're correct, if he is able to stay healthy for an entire season, he could be the best quarterback in that division. And they could be easily the best team and run away with it. Honestly, my concern is that he's already shown since he's been there, he's got issues already. I know COVID is not necessarily an injury, quote unquote, but he's dealt with that. He's dealt with his, what was his foot injury? And it seems like it's always one thing after another with him. And at some point, you've got to realize that, again, as everyone knows in the NFL, availability is your best ability. And if you're not available, then you're not really good. You're not helping your team. So I went with Tennessee because I think that obviously they have a healthy quarterback for the most part. Tannehill had the one major injury in his career, but he bounced back from it. He's been healthy. They added Julio. Derrick Henry obviously is still in his prime. He's a beast. They've obviously got, the weapons that they have at receiver and tight end and things like that. I think their defense is going to be improved. I don't think it's going to be elite, but I do think it's going to be improved. They started to show signs of that towards the end of last year. Again, not elite, but they started to improve a little bit, and I think that's what puts them over the top. When it comes to Jacksonville, honestly, the only reason that I picked them is because in third is because Houston is a dumpster fire, and pretty much no one wants to play them. Jacksonville is I think they're going to find out real quick, and Urban Meyer's going to find out real quick that you can't run things the way that you did at Ohio State and Florida and things like that and expect it to translate to the NFL. all of these guys are getting paid. They're all feeding their families. They're all, this is their livelihood. This is not, hey, this is how I get to go to school and things like that. So he's dealing with a different element. He's already, as we've seen, made some mistakes as far as bringing on a coach that ended up not even coaching for them. They had to resign the very next day for some things that he had said in the past. He brought in Tim Tebow, obviously, which was a horrible mistake. And honestly, he probably cost someone else an opportunity to make it to the NFL by using that roster spot for Tim Tebow for those few weeks. So he's learning, hopefully, that this is not college, and maybe he'll adjust. I don't think he will. I think that he's going to realize that he doesn't like the NFL, and he will end up going back to college. And unfortunately, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the one that suffers because of it. As talented as he is in a terrible situation. And, I think it's going to be rough for first couple of years for him. But other than that, there's nothing to say about Houston other than they'll be lucky to win one game. I'm going to ponder.
Yeah, well, Urban Meyer, honestly, I'm right there with you. Most college coaches in their first tenure up in the NFL ranks don't do so well. But if you remember right, Meyer came out of retirement to coach in the NFL. So if he fizzles out, I don't think he's going to be coaching ever again.
Well, I mean, that's very true. He did retire, and he came out of retirement. But you got to remember, he did that as well at Ohio State. Like, he retired from Florida and then came back and coached Florida and then retired again.
Yeah.
And then came back and coached Ohio State and then retired again at Ohio State and came back. So he's got possible. A habit of retiring and then coming back. So
for him, it's a health issue too.
It is a health issue as well, and I get that piece of it. But I think that he saw this opportunity to coach Trevor Lawrence, and he kind of felt like, oh, this is going to set me up just like at Ohio State, where I get the best quarterback, and I get this and I get that. And he's going to find out that everybody on every team in the NFL can play. They all have talent. They all can run. They all can jump. Some of them do it better than the others, but they all are good. That's why they made it to the league. And he's not gonna see those great differences in talent and skill that he did in college. Like
gotcha.
Almost every game that Ohio State stepped on the field, you knew they're the most talented team on the field. They got the best players. In the NFL, it's not that way. There's so much parity that, the old saying, any given Sunday, anything can happen. He's going to find that out really quick. All right, now we're going to go ahead and jump over to the AFC West, last division in the AFC for us before we jump over to the other conference, my favorite conference, the NFC, just because I'm a 49ers fan. But again, we'll kind of break this one down. We're pretty much the same with this one as well. Flip-flop the bottom two. But other than that, we both have Kansas City winning the division and the Chargers going to the playoffs. And then again, the bottom two are flip-flop. So I'll go ahead and again open it up to you, and then I'll give my take on this one as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. They got a top quarterback in football, superstar Mahomes. They've got Tyreek Hill. Their defense is good. Their D line's improved. They improved their offensive line in the offseason. I think that was pretty evident in the preseason, and they're just a better team, and that's kind of a scary thought when you think about it, because they're off of 2 straight Super Bowl trips, 1 win, 1 loss. And, the only thing that really prevented them from winning last year was that offensive line. So I shouldn't say that. I got to give credit to Tampa, actually, because their defensive line and their defense played lights out against Kansas City. So I won't take credit away from them, but it definitely didn't help Kansas City that their offensive line wasn't that great. So, I won't spend too much time talking about the Chiefs. They're a great team. They got a great coach. The Chargers, they're a young team and upcoming. They've got a quarterback who's got the potential to be great. He showed plenty of flashes last year. Keenan Allen at receiver. Their defense is stout. Eckler coming back this year should give them a big boost in the backfield. And then with Denver and Las Vegas, I've got Denver above them because I like Denver's defense a lot better. And their offenses, to me, are really similar in the sense that, they're going to run the ball and throw it when they feel necessary, both of those teams. Both of their quarterbacks, to me, are average quarterback. Bridgewater, he probably would be better off at this point in his career as a backup, just collecting that paycheck. Derek Carr hasn't really shown us anything since, his first couple years in the league. And they don't have any proven receivers or any proven weapons on offense that he can throw the ball to other than Waller. So until they show me something, I've got Denver above them.
Yeah, I agree. Kansas City is obviously the class of this division. I'll be honest, it was tough. Not tough. I was going with Kansas City, but I debated for a little while, possibly picking the Chargers to win this division based off of the strength of schedule that they have, and just a few other things. It's tough. As good as Kansas City is, and you're right, they went to 2 straight Super Bowls. I believe in my mind that, and other people think that I could be wrong, but I think they're a coin flip away from actually going to 3 straight Super Bowls and possibly going to 4 this year. I think that the first year that Patrick Mahomes was their starter, that AFC Championship game against New England, I think whoever won that coin toss, and obviously it was New England, and they went down and scored, but I think whoever would have won that coin toss was going to score a touchdown and win that game and go on to the Super Bowl. So it just happened to be that New England won the coin toss, and Kansas City couldn't stop Tom Brady from scoring a touchdown. So again, they're the class of this division and class of the AFC, to be honest with you, them and Buffalo, really. But based off the strength of schedule and a couple other factors, I almost picked the Chargers to win the division. That was going to be one of my bold predictions, but then I realized that that's not bold. That's probably crazy. So I didn't go with that one. As far as the bottom 2, I have them flip-flopped, and it's because of Teddy Bridgewater. You're right. He should probably be a backup. They should probably, try and find their guy. But for some reason, John Elway hasn't been able to do that. He left.
I don't know why they didn't draft a quarterback this year.
Yeah, I don't either. They had, opportunity to do so, to trade up. I understand that their defense is stout and you probably don't want to break it up, but you've got some pieces that would probably be worth letting go if it meant you were going to get one of those 5 quarterbacks that went in the first round this year. So, maybe, I don't know, maybe they made an offer to move up like the 49ers did or not. Maybe it wasn't enough, but I agree with you. They probably should have drafted a quarterback this year in the first round, or moved up to get one of those guys. But again, I think that although their defense is great, I have to trust Derek Carr a little more than I trust Teddy Bridgewater. They like to throw the ball a lot. I mean, they were in a lot of games last year, and their defense just let them down. They almost lost to the Jets because their defense let them down. It's tough, but I'm going to go with the Raiders just because I trust their quarterback a little more. I think he's got a little more to work with. I agree as far as receivers, Waller's about the only one they got. But, they've got some other pieces. Gruden's kind of offensive genius. He likes to draw up some crazy plays here and there. So I think that they're going to finish above Denver, but it's a toss-up. And then, of course, we both have the Chargers making the playoffs. I think the Chargers actually have a good shot to win a playoff game as a wild card team.
I think so too.
All right, on to the NFC. We'll start with the NFC East or NFC Least, whichever you prefer to call it. I think last year the latter obviously was true. One of the worst divisions in the history of football last year.
Yeah.
Honestly, it looks the same this year. It's going to be again kind of a crapshoot, and none of them look like they're going to be. I don't see a double. Well, I take that back. I see double-digit win team, but I think it's only because they have an extra game. So I'll start this one off. Obviously, I have Washington. As you can see, we both have Washington first, Dallas second, Philly third, the Giants last. I have Washington first because I think their defense is elite. That's what carried them for most of the season last year. Although Ryan Fitzpatrick is not Patrick Mahomes, I do think that he is a upgrade as far as the quarterback position. As much as I love my man Alex Smith, we all know he was playing on one leg last year and did what he could. And now they're going to have somebody that can, throw the ball a little deeper down the field, likes to throw the ball all over the place, and is going to be on 2 good legs. So I really think that that's enough to put them over the top in this weak division. The reason I didn't pick Dallas as the number one team is although their defense should be improved because it can't really be worse than what it was last year, I don't think it's going to be improved enough. They did hit a home run with their first round draft pick, Micah Parsons, but other than that, I don't see any major pieces added to this defense that are going to make that much of a difference. I still see them having to throw the ball a lot, and for them, if that's the scenario at the beginning of the season, it could mean that they're going to fall behind very quickly in the standings because, Dak hasn't thrown the ball a lot in the preseason. And if you go into week one, especially like against Tampa Bay or someone like that, and you ask him to start chucking the ball all over the place, who knows? Maybe he hurts that shoulder again. Hopefully he doesn't, but he hasn't had enough reps for you to count on him. And obviously Zeke looks like he's in great shape, but until he's on the field, we don't know, right? We don't know. They call them workout warriors. You see all those guys that go to the combine and look like they're in phenomenal shape, and then when they get on a football field, they look lost. So, of course, their offensive line has some concerns. They have some guys back, but it only takes one injury for that offensive line to be mediocre again, like it was last year for most of the season. So that's why I didn't pick them over Washington. I think Philly, Jalen Hurts he's a nice quarterback. He's a nice player, but I don't think he's enough to put them over the top. I think they're going to have a better season than they did last year, but I don't think that they win this division. They just don't have enough on both sides of the ball. They've got some pieces, but just not enough to compete with Washington when it comes to like defense and things like that. And then the Giants, they've probably got honestly the second most talent in this entire division on their roster, but for some reason their coaching staff just can't put it together and get it to work right and make it click. So the quarterback is a big concern. If you watched any part of the highlights or any part of the game they played this week, he's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's one drive he'll take them down the field and throw a dime, and that's why they call him Danny Dimes. And then the next time he'll take them down the field and throw an interception where he shouldn't have even thrown the ball at all. And it's just like, oh my goodness. So that's why I have them last. It's just because of inconsistency. I don't think that, although Joe Judge was probably a great coach when he was an assistant and things like that, I don't think that as a head coach, he's able to make the impact and get the buy-in from his players that you need in the NFL and really any professional league for your team to be successful. I think there's a lot of fragmented parts to that team. That's
I agree with you on most of that. I like Washington for the same exact reasons. Their defense is going to be phenomenal. They were great last year. They're going to be probably even better this year. Of course, I love Alex Smith just as much as the next guy, but we all know, even on a good leg, that he's not one to drive the ball down the field. He's going to manage the game, make sure he doesn't turn the ball over. He's going to, pick efficient play, and not take very many risks. And that's the element that Fitzpatrick will bring to the Redskins offense. And you nailed it. He's definitely not Patrick Mahomes or even in that realm, but with the receivers he has, if they can stretch the field just a little bit more, get a few more balls, 15, 20 yards down the field with McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and a few of those other guys, then they're going to be a really good team. They're going to win double-digit games. Dallas, in my opinion, has nothing to do with their talent. It's all about their coach. I think McCarthy gets fired after the year, honestly. I don't see him in Green Bay, Dallas any longer. And he's just not a good head coach, in my opinion. I don't think that he makes his team better. I don't think he makes his coaching staff better. Their defense definitely did improve from a talent standpoint. They got Micah Parsons in the draft. They even got Keanu Neal, who was moved from safety to linebacker, and he's looked really good in the preseason too. They still have Van Der Esch on the roster, and even Jalen Smith, who's been subject of trade rumors. But they do have some talent on their defense. But to me, it's all about their coaching, and it starts at the top with McCarthy, and then it kind of trickles down. I don't think he's a good enough coach to get the most out of this team. And he's just terrible in situational football. You know, we've seen in the past, and all the way back to Green Bay and even with Dallas, when, you know, they're in certain situations, close games, his play calling and his ability to, you know, lead the team to victory is not there. So that's why I have Dallas in second. Their sheer talent alone gets them to second. If they had a different coach, a better head coach, I think they could win this division because they have a ton of talent on offense. I mean, Zeke,
Absolutely.
Dak is a great quarterback. You got Amari Cooper, CD, he's going into sophomore year. He's good. Gallup, he's a good receiver. He's proven that he can, you know, catch balls. Even their backup running backs played pretty well behind Zeke last year when he was having fumbling issues. So I like Dallas's offense. I'd like to see how well they play on defense. Philly, to me, is kind of like a wild card. You know, I'm not sure what to think of them at this moment. You know, Jalen Hurts could be great, could not be so great. You know, no one really knows. I mean, he had flashes last year, but, you know, if we're being honest, like he came in kind of midway through the year or whatnot, you know, towards the end of the year, and he was just kind of thrown into the fire. He's got an off season. They were able to have training camp this year. They were able to play preseason games. So I would really like to see Hurts and what he can do with this offense. I mean, they still got some talent on the offensive line. They still have some talented receivers. So we'll see what we can get. And when I say receivers, I mean tight ends in Philly, because their tight ends are their best receivers, and Goddard and Ertz. And then with the Giants, it's not much for me to say about them. You know, I was really high on the Kenny Golladay signing, but I think if there's one thing he's proven in this offseason is that he's still injury prone. He just got paid a lot of money, and I'm not sure how much of that money is guaranteed, but hey, I mean, you can get paid, you know, hey, guy, get your money. But if he is healthy, you know, he could add different elements of the offense, but it's all about their coaching as well. Like you mentioned, their coaching, you know, Danny Dimes, he's so Jekyll and Hyde. You know, you don't know what you're going to get on any given day. Their offensive line's not great. Their defense is not great, not even good. They're just average, I guess. So, you know, maybe Jones comes out and plays well because he is in a contract year. But we'll see. We got to see how the season plays out.
Yeah. A couple of things you said there, I definitely want to kind of piggyback off of. I agree. Mike McCarthy, whether Jerry Jones admits it or not, Mike McCarthy is on the hot seat in year two, because Dak is back and they paid him money. They paid him a lot of money. So the expectations are for them to win, and not just win the division. Their expectations are to win playoff games, and I don't see Mike McCarthy doing that. And I agree with you. He's proven that especially the second half of his career, his time in Green Bay, and then now that he's been in Dallas, that he doesn't make adjustments. He just goes out and he calls the same plays and does. And you saw the videos of, you know, his last couple of years there with Green Bay, where Aaron Rodgers was yelling at the sideline. Reports of Aaron Rodgers telling the guys in the huddle, "We're not running that play. We're running this play." You know, and that's obviously the reason that he left Green Bay, is because back then they realized who was the most important player on a piece of their team, and it was the quarterback. For some reason, they don't know that now, but that's a different story. You know, but that's what happened, and he's proven that since he's been in Dallas, although they have their injury with Dak, he's proven that he just doesn't make adjustments. You know, no matter who's the quarterback, no matter who's the running back, wide receiver, whatever, he's going to go out there and call his plays. And whether it's the play that puts them in the right position or not, he doesn't care. He's just going to call what he calls in a certain situation. So I agree with you. You know, when it comes to situational play calling, there's a lot to be desired there if you're a Cowboys fan. So I think he's definitely on the hot seat.
Big time.
And then obviously we talked about the Giants and their issues. So, you know, not too much there. I think Philadelphia, like you said, one thing you said about Jalen Hurts is there's not he didn't play a lot last year. He's still like an unknown commodity. He could be great. He could be a bust. I think he's probably going to be somewhere in the middle. He's going to be a good quarterback, not elite, not top tier, but I think he can contribute to a team winning and contribute to helping a team grow a culture and things like that. Because one thing that I can say about him, if you followed him throughout his career, he's been counted out everywhere he's been, and he's always bounced back and performed at a high level. So
Yeah.
I think that he is an unknown commodity, and if he comes out and he is, if he kills it, who knows? Philly might, end up winning this division based off of how he plays. So if you think about it, out of all of these quarterbacks, he is the one that is most multidimensional if he can be accurate with the ball. He has the most dynamic legs of anybody in this division as far as quarterback goes. So
I agree.
And that means a lot in today's NFL, of course. So
I kind of liken it to the Tua situation, in the sense that, COVID halted a lot of things for these young players, and it halted their progress. It halted their ability to learn, because what they were learning is how to, instead of learning the game, they were learning how to, schedule and go through all these protocols, so on and so forth. So all that, what they were learning, the guidelines, and it was taking away time they could spend in the playbooks, taking away time they could, spend watching videos, so on and so forth. So this full training camp and off season is going to be very valuable for those guys. So I liken Hurts to Tua, the Tua situation, in the sense that they now have a much better grasp of the system. And coincidentally, they both come from Alabama.
You tied them together because Tua is the one that took his job in the championship game. But he went to, like I said, he went to Oklahoma the next year and balled out. So again, I think that like you were saying, he is the wild card, and if he comes out and starts balling, Philly could be a surprise team for sure. So
big time, especially in a division that's not so strong. I mean, I like Washington, but they're not an elite team. They could, they're an injury away or something like that. I don't wish any injuries on any team or any player, but they are really just an injury away from a superstar, from not being, they could be dead last. I mean, if Fitzpatrick or
Chase Young.
Who?
Chase Young.
Yeah, Chase Young, any of those guys, Gibson, if anyone gets hurt, those guys are not going to be good. They'll be average or bad.
Yep, exactly. I agree. Yeah, so NFC least still is what I say.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, moving on from the East, we'll bounce over to the NFC North. Again, another division where we have the same order as far as how they'll finish. Obviously, we have a different take as far as Chicago being a wild card team. I'll go ahead and open it up to you, and then I'll follow up.
Yeah, see, this division right here is similar to the NFC East in the sense that, you got two teams at the top, kind of, that one's good. Green Bay's good on offense. I'm not convinced on their defense, so I have Green Bay at 1. I got Chicago 2, Minnesota 3, and Detroit. But Green Bay, they're constantly good. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, so that gives them a nod there in number 1. Chicago, for me, I would like to see, if I'm a fan of Chicago, I don't want Dalton starting a single game.
Not at all.
I want Fields starting. I want him to get those growing pains in week 1, week 2, so that way by week 3, week 4, he can develop some stability and some momentum, and then just finish off the rest of the season strong. But I'm not an NFL head coach, so I'm just a fan. But if I was a fan of Chicago, I want to see Fields on the field immediately. I want to see what he can do with those weapons. I think Chicago's got a lot of good weapons on offense. Allen Robinson is, without a doubt, in my opinion, one of the best receivers in the league. He's been plagued by mediocre quarterbacks throughout his career and still produced. Darnell Mooney, sophomore receiver, he's pretty good. I've actually watched some of his film. I watched some last year in game day because I had Robinson on fantasy. So, watching their games, I just kind of saw Mooney. And the dude can run routes. I mean, he's a route running fool. He gets in and out of those routes super quick. He puts dudes on skates like like nobody. So he's
Yeah.
a terrific second receiver. And then Montgomery, I mean, everyone knows what Montgomery did towards the end of last year. The offensive line finally got a little continuity, and Montgomery went on a tear. He was averaging 20-plus fantasy points a game. And, you know, that translates generally into game day production.
Yep.
Or vice versa. Game day production translates into fantasy points. One way or the other, though, the dude killed it. So they've got a pretty decent offense there with Fields. I think they could catch up to Green Bay offensive talent-wise. And their defense, you know, with Khalil Mack and a few of those other anchors there, I believe that their defense is good. So I have them in second. Minnesota, you know, they're kind of average to me. Kirk Cousins, you know, has proven he's not capable of winning the big games or against he plays to the competition, in my opinion. And he can't beat the good teams. You know, when he's going against those stellar defenses, he can't beat them. And it's sad too, because Minnesota has good talent at the receiver position. They have a good running back. I like Zimmer as a coach. I just don't think Cousins is the one that put him over the hump. And then with Detroit, well, they're in rebuild, and we'll see what we can get out of it. They got Goff.
Always in rebuild.
Huh?
They're always in rebuild mode.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they've got Goff now. Their best receiver is T.J. Hawkinson, Tyrell Williams.
That's my keeper in the 11th round, T.J. Hawkinson. Hey,
I like Hawk. I like Hawk big time. But the thing is, you know, he's their best receiver, so I feel like he might lose a little production this year because, you know, defenses may key on him a little bit more. They brought in Tyrell Williams as our wide receiver 1 this year. He's a journeyman receiver, so, you know, you combine him with now probably Goff, who's going to be a journeyman quarterback when his career is all said and done. And the best thing they got going for them right now, in my opinion, is Swift in the backfield. If he can get on the field, their coach recently has mentioned his conditioning, which is a head scratcher to me. And then I like Amon-Ra St. Brown, their rookie receiver. And I think he's going to be phenomenal. I think by the end of the year, he will be their wide receiver 1.
Yeah. Yeah. I when it comes to Detroit, I think I agree with everything you said. They obviously they're
cursed.
They're cursed. They're in rebuild mode. Obviously, they made the trade and gave up Matthew Stafford and got Goff in return and those draft picks. Yeah. I think honestly, what's going to be the most value for them is those draft picks. I don't think Jared Goff is that guy, and if he was, then the Rams wouldn't have got rid of him. Sean McVay would have held on to him. So I agree with you, DeAndre Swift. If he gets on the field, he can be, we want to talk about fantasy for a minute. He can be one of those fantasy producers that's kind of not a household name for the most part, but he can put up numbers every week because of his catching ability, things like that.
Yeah.
But again, I don't see them competing really in this division at all. I think they're going to struggle to be competitive in most games, to be honest with you.
They're going to be pushing for the number 1 pick this year.
Yeah, I think they're going to be in the running for most of the season. And then if we go back to the top, obviously Green Bay is the best team in this division. Coming off of 2 NFC championship games in a row, 2 13-3 seasons. I don't see them having only 3 losses this year. I think they come back down to earth a little bit. I don't see them going 13-4 or 14-3, anything like that. Maybe 12 wins, somewhere in there. Aaron Rodgers is going to be on a mission, of course, to stick it to him even more. So he's going to be playing lights out. They've got a lot of weapons. They brought back, one of his favorite receivers, Randall Cobb. They've got Aaron Jones in the backfield. So they're obviously going to be a strong team. Their defense was pretty close to top 10 last year. We'll see if they've improved at all. Green Bay is one of those teams when it comes to defense, it's kind of luck of the draw. You never know what you're going to get with them. But again, I don't see Chicago or Minnesota, pressing them for this division at all. I think that this is a big if Justin Fields hits the field before week 5, I think that Chicago makes the playoffs. So that's why I have them as a wild card. I think he just adds that extra dimension to their offense that would unlock even more of Allen Robinson and Montgomery and things of that nature. He brings a little, a little more dynamic, obviously a more dynamic offense to the field. Of course, if you watch that hit that he took in the preseason where his helmet got knocked off on the blindside hit where the defender came in unblocked.
Yeah.
He's got to get better at reading, defenses and picking up on things. So I can see why they're going with Dalton to start the season. That hit right there could have put him out for a few weeks if that's regular season and he gets a concussion or something. So he's still got some growing to do, some learning, and learn how to read things. But I think that he's coming along at a fast pace, and eventually Chicago goes to him, and they end up making the playoffs as a wild card team. I agree with you when it comes to Minnesota. Kirk Cousins has shown what his ceiling is. He's just not a leader of a football team. Like he's
Derek Carr to me.
Quarterback. He's in that Derek Carr level. I would say probably Derek Carr's more of a leader. I think that the Raiders probably follow Derek Carr more than the Vikings follow Kirk Cousins. Just because I think talent-wise they're probably about even. But as far as the leadership skills, I think that Derek Carr is more of a leader. Now that obviously hasn't translated to wins for him either, other than maybe one season. But I think you're right. He's kind of in that same realm right there with Derek Carr. He's just not the guy that's going to put you over the top. Like you pretty much need everything else around him to be perfect for him to succeed. And that's just been the story with Minnesota lately. Unfortunately, is they've kind of hit this wall where they thought they were getting something that they didn't get. They paid a lot of money for Kirk Cousins to come in, and they have basically finished exactly where they finished with oh gosh, what was his name? The quarterback that took Case Keenum. They finished basically exactly where they have with Case Keenum. He actually took them to the NFC Championship game off of the Miracle, the Minneapolis Miracle. And since then, I don't think they've gone to the second round of the playoffs. So I don't think they've won a playoff game since then. Maybe one. So
yeah. So I agree. Derek Carr is certainly a better leader. I think talent-wise, at this point in their career, they are similar. But I don't want to forget the fact that Carr, at one point in his career, was an MVP candidate and was playing really good football.
He definitely was before he broke his leg that year. He was kind of like Carson Wentz the year that he got hurt. He was leading a surprise team. They were having a hell of a season and then ended up getting hurt. Unfortunately for the Raiders, they didn't have a Nick Foles to step in, and they got torched in the playoffs. So, he was having an MVP type season before he got hurt. And that's something about Kirk Cousins I don't think that we've ever been able to say is that he is in the MVP conversation or he was having an MVP type season at any point in his career. He's had maybe 3 or 4 game stints where he's played like an MVP, but he hasn't been able to put it together for a full season or even more than a quarter of a season.
Yeah, the biggest media story ever surrounding Kirk Cousins was the fact that he couldn't beat a team over 500.
Yeah, that and the you like that video.
I had a pigeon flying in my window.
That's hilarious. So even he doesn't like the Vikings. So all right, cool. We'll go ahead and bounce over to the home of the defending champs, the NFC South. I'll go ahead and kick this one off. Of course, we both have Tampa Bay at the top, defending champs. I don't see anyone challenging them for this division at all. Obviously, underneath that, we've got some differences, and we could probably, debate that a little. But when it comes to Tampa Bay, when you're the defending champ, you have the greatest quarterback that ever played, and you bring back all 22 starters from the Super Bowl. How can you pick against them? Until you beat the champ, then we're going to keep thinking they're going to be the champ. So that's why I have Tampa Bay where they're at. Of course, I think most people do, and it's really a no-brainer when it comes to number one. Now, when you get to the rest of the division, I think really this could be a toss-up. Originally, when I started, I had the order that you had, and then the more I looked into these teams and the more I did, my research and looked at a few different things, I I went with Carolina as the number 2 team. I think Carolina is going to challenge for a playoff spot. It was between them and Chicago for my last playoff spot. So again, if Justin Fields doesn't see the field, I pick Carolina to take their place in the playoffs. But I'm going to go with Justin Fields seeing the field. So, and I know this goes against everything I've ever said, but I think the addition of Sam Darnold is going to make that much of a difference, even though he is a USC quarterback. I think that he's going to
make. I was just going to say, man, that's a surprise given your hatred for USC players in general.
Yeah, I can't stand them at all. There's very few that I've liked. Ronnie Lott, I love you, though. But yeah, I think he's going to be the difference maker. They obviously have McCaffrey if he comes back healthy and he is what he was before he got hurt. Obviously, he's a stud. They've got some opportunity with this division really in flux right now. Matt Ryan's at the end of his career. Drew Brees is gone. The last time we saw Jameis Winston in a regular season as a starter, he was the first 30 for 30 man in the NFL. Obviously, Taysom Hill is not that guy. Otherwise, they would have picked him to be the starter.
Right.
So I think, obviously, Tom Brady is Tom Brady. If you look at it, Sam Darnold has a chance to be the second best quarterback in this division. And we all know that this league is a quarterback-driven league. And I think that he brings some, he's a fresh start for him. I think one of the things that's really interesting, it's going to be nice to see next Sunday, is they open their season against the Jets. So it'll be fun to see him playing against his old team. And I think, he's motivated. All the reports coming out of camp are that he's looked really well. The preseason highlights and games that I watched when he did play, he didn't look like that same Sam Darnold that was making mistakes, and scared to be on the field and seeing ghosts and things like that. So I really think he's going to be the difference maker to put them in number 2. I went with New Orleans over Atlanta because I think that Atlanta really is talent deprived. They've got a few guys, but for the most part, they've kind of let everybody kind of leave. Matt Ryan, again, I think is at the last leg of his career. And I'm going to go with New Orleans just because of all the weapons that they do have. And Sean Payton is a much better play caller than Atlanta's coach. So that's where I'm going, and that's my take, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we could always be wrong, especially this early in the season. Tampa, they're the defending Super Bowl champs, so no need to get into much with them. They're number 1 because they are the defending champs. They literally brought back every starter from the championship roster, so there's no need for doubting that they, will win their own division, let alone the NFC or even another Super Bowl at this point. Then this is where it gets different for us. I have New Orleans right there at number 2, and I believe that Jameis Winston will resurrect his career right here in New Orleans under Sean Payton. He had a year to sit behind Drew Brees too. That's huge as well, right? So everyone mentions the 30-30 season, right? So we know he's capable of throwing 30 touchdown passes, but you get under Drew Brees for a year. Now you're being coached by Sean Payton, one of the best coaches ever. And I think that he still has the ability to throw those 30 TDs, and especially in Sean Payton's scheme. But because of being behind Brees and, having those guys be able to say, hey, listen, this is where you messed up, or this is where you may cause a turnover, he will now have the ability to reduce those turnovers. And if he can cut them down by half, 30-15, he's right up there at the top of the league of the quarterbacks. Yep. And I think it's highly possible. He's proven he can, throw for 4,000 plus yards with consistency. So I like Jameis. I like the offense there. If they get Michael Thomas back in the middle of the season like they anticipate, their defense is good. So I like the feel of things there. And I think Jameis Winston will resurrect his career under Sean Payton. He probably is going to be a Saint for the next few years. And then with Carolina, Atlanta, Carolina's young. but I don't like Darnold. I think that, well, let me take a step back.
I don't like him either, but I think he's gonna have a great season.
He does have some
season. I think he's gonna have a good season.
He does have some talent there over on that roster. But even with talent, it's all about decision making, and he hasn't been the best decision maker, So when it comes to like squeezing passes into tight places, throwing the double coverage, not reading defenses properly, Donald's that guy. And until he shows me otherwise, he's going to remain that guy. Yeah. Kind of same with, and I would say the same about Jameis Winston if he didn't have Sean Payton as coach.
Yeah.
Then you go to Darnold, who does Carolina have as their coach? Matt Rule. And he's an average coach. I mean, he hasn't shown to be a great coach yet. So if McCaffrey can remain healthy for the whole season, which I think he will this year, then Carolina has a chance to move up into that 3 spot over Atlanta. But I've got Atlanta there now based on experience at the quarterback position. Matt Ryan, it's like you said earlier, experience does count for something. He's got the experience. They do have Calvin Ridley, who's phenomenal. Yeah. They got Pitts in the draft. Their offense has always been good. The one concern for me about Atlanta is their defense, as usual. So we'll see how that turns out for them this year. But those two could easily flip-flop for me. Right now, I've got Atlanta 3, Carolina 4, and that's just based on the experience at the quarterback position for those two teams.
I got you. Yeah. The only reason I have them Atlanta at the bottom is because of Matt Ryan being a little long in the tooth there and being on his last leg. I really don't know how much he has left in the tank. We'll find out, obviously. Like you said, they got Calvin Ridley. They've got a couple pieces. They did get Pitts. I just think that those two guys aren't going to be enough with an immobile quarterback to really make a lot of noise. So I agree that Jameis, he could end up cutting down his turnovers and having a phenomenal season and being one of those top tier quarterbacks. But like you said, I'm the same with you. I'm until I see it, I won't believe it. And I'm basing my opinion on Sam Darnold's season off of a small sample size of the preseason. But what I have seen in the preseason leads me to believe that Matt Rule has him on the right track. Now, whether that translates in the regular season when he starts seeing actual defenses is yet to be seen. But I do think that, the fact that he's got chemistry with Robbie Anderson will help out as well. And like you said, I just the bottom 3 are kind of a toss-up for me. I just figured that C-Mac coming back, he's going to have a hell of a season as well and be on a mission. And that's enough to put them in number 2 in this division, which is obviously going to be ruled by Tampa Bay until Tom Brady decides to leave. So,
yeah, I agree.
But I could be wrong. All right, over to the NFC West, obviously our favorite division because go Niners. I'll go ahead and open this one up to you first, and then I'll give my take. Obviously, we have a couple of differences, but no surprise at the top. Both of us have the Niners winning the division. And, of course, all of these picks are based off of health. So I think that's the main reason we have our team at the top. But I'll let you go ahead and give your take on this division.
Yeah, easily. I wouldn't say easily. There's a lot of talent around the NFL now, but it's still up there as the best division in football. My fandom played a part in this, but also the fact that the 49ers are just talented head to toe. Quarterback position, the depth there has greatly improved. And we saw that in the preseason, that both of our quarterbacks are capable of making plays, which is phenomenal. But then, the improvements on the offensive line with Trent Williams and Alex Max, whom I saw in that finale, just mauling dudes on defense, opened up some gaping holes for Mostert to run through. Mostert had, I think, 3 runs of 10 yards or more in the limited play that he had. And that's a result of scheme and that offensive line. So Trent Brown downfield about 8 yards, laying a block on a dude. And it was phenomenal. I loved seeing that. So
I know exactly which play you're talking about.
Yeah.
Him and Kittle both blew out that left side of that line. Kittle had a nice block too on the same exact play, and then
Yep.
the back just busted through the hole, and it was a gaping hole. Yeah.
Yeah, with Mostert just boom, gone. And that's the kind of thing we were expecting from Trent Brown when they signed him last year. They gave him a big contract this offseason. Now we go and get Alex Mack at center, who has proven to be a great center in the league. He's already familiar with Shanahan's system from his time in Atlanta. And hopefully that'll bring some health continuity there, because we had Richburg last year, who we brought in and signed, who is now retired, but he was unhealthy throughout his tenure with us. So health is huge in this decision as well. Right now, the 49ers are healthy head to toe. They've got Jalen Hurd coming back at receiver. They've got Ayuk, Debo. And this is really the best receiving core that the 49ers have had in years that I can remember as a fan. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with us, too, that this is the best receiving core that the 49ers have had in quite a long time, which just Debo and Ayuk alone. And then you toss in Kittle at tight end, catching balls. Jalen Hurd looked really good in the finale. His health is an issue. And then we all know what Bosa and D Ford and these guys are capable of. And then the depth of our defensive line has always, I wouldn't say always, but the last few years has been a big strength of ours, head to toe. I mean, we're 8 defensive linemen deep. I think our 5th, 6th, and 7th D linemen are better than some teams' starting D linemen. We got Reed. Then there's Icbw, who we just brought in as a free agent, who played really well as well. You combine those guys with guys like D Ford and Bosa, and it's going to be a nightmare for offensive lines. Our secondary still scares me a little bit. The 49ers secondary still scares me a little bit, but they did get some young rookies who played lights out in the preseason. Lenore played well. And then Hufanga, the safety, also played really well. So bringing those guys in, maybe they won't start immediately, but I definitely know that they're capable of being big role players early on in their careers for the 49ers. Then my second place team there is the Rams. I mean, they're just a good team head to toe. You know, they're balanced. They're very well balanced. They bring in Stafford, who is a definite upgrade at quarterback, but I'm not so sure he pushes them over the hump like everyone thinks that he's going to. You know, Stafford's had the opportunity to play with some good talent early on in his career at receiver. I mean, he had Megatron early on in his career. They may not have had the defense that the Rams had, but let's just be honest. I mean, you know, Stafford's always put up average to good numbers, but never great numbers. So I think with them bringing in Stafford, they are still a playoff team. They're a good team. I don't think that he's going to make them much better than everyone thinks. He can't move the pocket. He can't run, you know.
Yeah.
He's going to have to sit back in the pocket and throw the ball. And the league is not really like that anymore. Unless you're Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers can even move a little bit. But unless you're those guys, you know, teams these days are really looking for those quarterbacks who can move the pocket. They can get out of the tackle box and really see the field and get guys open. So I've got them as my second place team. Their defense is phenomenal. Aaron Donald's right up there in my conversation for defensive player of the year this year. Then we go to the bottom of the division, where I've got Seattle and Arizona. I have 3 teams in this division as playoff teams. 49ers win the division, Rams and Seahawks as my wild card teams. I like the Seahawks because of their quarterback and the experience they have playing together. You know, DK's been with them now for a season. He played lights out. Tyler Lockett is a great player. He's a great receiver. You know, they're getting back to their ground and pound this preseason. From what I saw, they're going to be running the ball a lot, and that's really what when Seattle is playing good defense and running the ball really well, like what we were talking about with Pittsburgh earlier.
Yeah.
Play good defense, run the ball really well, don't put a lot on the quarterback. That's when they're at their best. So I think Seattle is going to make the playoffs. They'll probably have a similar record to the Rams. And then Arizona, I think they regress this year. Kyler Murray is a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. He's a great fantasy quarterback, but not a great pro quarterback, in my opinion. They do have Hopkins, but outside of Hopkins on offense, I mean, I don't really know who they have that stands out to me. They've got a couple of players like Edmonds and they just signed AJ Green, but we don't know what we're going to get out of AJ Green. No one knows what we're going to get out of AJ Green. So, and then their defense is mediocre, in my opinion. They're not good. They're not great, but they're not bad. They're average.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with Arizona being at the bottom there. I do think they regress, like you said. And that started last year. If you think about the way they started the season and how they finished, they started to take a step back last year. I think for me, the biggest story about Arizona and the biggest change for them is Larry Fitzgerald is not there anymore. He was the leader of that team in the locker room. He's Mr. Cardinal. Like I said, if you think about the Cardinals, he's the guy you think about if you really think about, their time in Arizona anyway. So, and he's a Hall of Famer. He's going to the Hall of Fame at the first opportunity. So they did, bring in a guy, J.J. Watt, who's a proven leader and has been a proven leader in a different locker room. So I think they have a guy that can step in, but he's new, so he's still going to be assimilating, to the team and the locker room, things like that. So I think that's going to be a big factor for them. But again, I agree with you. I think that Cliff Kingsbury and his offense, it didn't shock anybody like they expected it to. The air raid offense, with all of these teams now going to pass heavy offensive schemes and things like that, defenses are ready for it. Like, Kyler Murray isn't something that defenses haven't seen before. Like, you think about Mike Vick, if it was back when Mike Vick played, then he'd be, one of those guys that you just can't figure out. But the fact that we now have Lamar Jackson, we have Deshaun Watson, we had Colin Kaepernick, we got Josh Allen and players like that can move, throw the ball and really do things with both their arm and their legs. Kyler Murray is not that surprise player that sneaks up on defenses anymore. So I agree with you. He's a fantasy stud and he's going to continue to be, which, hey, more power to you because I might have him on my team. So, hey, I'll take it. I think Arizona obviously is the team that's at the bottom here. I don't think they have a chance to win this division. I think the other three teams do have a chance. Again, I'm going with San Francisco based off of health. If they are healthy, I think they're the best team. I think that they have the best coach. Pete Carroll's a hell of a coach. Sean McVay's a hell of a coach. But I think that they have the best coach when it comes to play calling. The dynamic between the front office and the head coach. I mean, they are in lockstep, so they have the same vision and everything. So I think that puts San Francisco above the other two teams. I am not a big fan of Matt Stafford. Never have been. I don't see what all the hoopla is about. He's got a big arm. He's got a lot of talent, thrown for a lot of yards, but a lot of those yards are garbage yards because his team was getting blown out. So you mentioned earlier he had Megatron for a good portion of his career, and I think they had maybe 1 or 2 winning seasons that whole time. So granted, that's not all on him. Their defenses in Detroit were not that good. They have a great defense, an elite defense in LA. So I do think that that's enough to carry them to the playoffs. But I'm going to go ahead and take Seattle second because I think Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll have squashed their issue for now. They're both professionals. That doesn't mean that they are going to get along forever and he'll be there after this year, but I think they've squashed their issues. They're professional enough to know what the task is at hand and focus on that and then deal with their other stuff after the season's over. I don't see I don't see the Rams even winning a playoff game. I think they make the playoffs, but I don't see them winning one just because I'm not a big believer in Matthew Stafford. I would take Russell Wilson over him 8 days a week. So That's really my take on this division. I think that the 49ers, again, if they stay healthy, I could see them winning 13, 14 games this year, and really kind of separating themselves from the other two. On the other hand, if they have some injuries, I could see them down there at number 3 and possibly number 4 like last year, and then Seattle jumping up and taking that spot. So health is going to be a big determining factor in this division. This division to me is a lot like the AFC North. It's between those two teams as the most competitive and strongest division in the NFL. It's between those two divisions. And really, I think if we're healthy, we have the slight edge as far as the NFC West being stronger than the AFC North. But again, health is such a big concern, especially with COVID. So now that's another thing you got to factor in. The league has made it clear that they are not trying to postpone games or reschedule games or anything like that. And if you don't have players to fill a position, you're just going to have to play without those dudes. So yeah. I think that's going to be a factor, an unknown factor. You know, who knows whose quarterback misses a big game because they were in close contact with someone or something of that nature. So health is going to be a big factor, but if everything is, good and everyone's healthy and makes it through the season, I have the 49ers winning this division with 13 or 14 wins based off of the schedule they're going to play. And just their head coach is a phenomenal play caller. He's going to put whoever's quarterback, he's going to put them in a position to be successful. We've seen that when Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy, he pretty much all he does is win, right? Granted, they lost the Super Bowl, but he had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. It's not like they got blown out and weren't in the game or anything like that. A couple breaks here and there. The 49ers might have been celebrating the Super Bowl instead of the Chiefs. So, again, it all boils down to health, but I'm going with the Niners because I think they have the most complete team, top to bottom, offense and defense. And I trust their coach more than I trust the other teams.
I agree.
All right, so I didn't think we'd have much debate on the top team there or the bottom team. Obviously, we can debate those middle teams, but
yeah,
I think Matt Stafford is overrated, and a lot of the league's going to find out. Most fans are going to find that out this year. So, all right, so that's our division takes, our division predictions, and the playoff teams that we think will make it. We'll go ahead and jump over before we give our playoff predictions. I want to jump over to our individual season award winners. We've got a few differences. I think actually we have all differences. So I'll kind of let you give your take, and then I will go ahead and run through my list and, see how the conversation goes, see where it goes.
Yeah, I believe Micah Parsons with the Cowboys is going to be my defensive rookie of the year because Dallas is one of those teams where a player like him could take a bad defense and make them good. He sees the field really well. He's all over the field. He's good in pass coverage. He's good, playing the run. So I believe Parsons comes in, makes a huge change in the Dallas defense. Doesn't make them elite just yet. They still have other players that they need to play around him. But I think he does enough on that defense to make them a good defense. And definitely, if not win, he's going to be in that conversation. But I do believe he's going to win Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year for his performance there on the Dallas defense. Yeah, so for my Offensive Rookie of the Year, I got Trevor Lawrence there. It's hard to go against that number 1 pick. Based off of what I saw in the preseason, he's super accurate. But if I'm being honest, similar to last year, Burrow went number 1. Herbert wound up winning that Offensive Rookie of the Year, but that's because, Burrow got hurt. So there is enough talent from the offensive players that were drafted where someone else could easily win that Offensive Rookie of the Year. I can't remember a time in all the years I've watched football that I thought that there's 5 quarterbacks that were drafted that could all have really good careers. So I think any one of those guys, Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, and Fields, any of those guys could easily win this. But right now I'm picking Trevor Lawrence. They let him loose a little bit on that that preseason finale. He got a couple of deep bombs. It looked like they wanted to spread that ball out and let him just kind of air it out. And he was super accurate with those throws. So I've got him there. My defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett, is who I have there. He's been in the conversation for a few years now. I think this is his year. They did add some additional pieces on their defense that should help free him up, take away some double teams. So I've got Myles Garrett finally breaking through and winning that defensive player of the year. My offensive player of the year, Alvin Kamara. And this is because I believe he's going to get some additional volume there with Jameis. He's going to be Jameis Winston's favorite target. Kamara may be, he may be. I'm gonna okay. This is my another bold prediction. You asked me earlier if I was gonna have any, so I'm gonna throw this out there before we get to it. But I think Kamara could have 100 receptions this year.
That is bold. I think that's definitely a bold prediction. That he gets 100 catches. That would be a heavy workload, considering how much he's going to run the ball too. That would definitely be a bold prediction. But if he does that, I agree with you hands down. He's the offensive player of the year.
Yeah, I do believe he's going to get close. He's going to be in that realm. I think there's going to be a lot of check downs. Jameis is going to check the ball down a lot. I believe that, with Winston working with Peyton's going to help him see that field a little bit better. Sean Payton, I'm talking about, and help him recognize when a play's not there, you get it to your playmaker. And that playmaker for him is Alvin Kamara. So I think Kamara is going to have a huge season. Unfortunately, I won't be able to pick him up in my fantasy league. Well, probably in ours, but my other one, I won't be able to get him because he's a keeper. But nonetheless, Kamara, offensive player of the year, comeback player of the year. My guy, my Niner guy, Nick Bosa, coming off that injury. I think he's going to get double-digit sacks easy. If he stays healthy, he's going to get a lot of QB pressures. He might be defensive player of the year, but I'm not going to go that far just yet. I got him as my comeback player of the year. And I've been saying this for weeks now. My MVP is Josh Allen.
Okay.
I think he might hit 40 touchdown passes this year. Probably going to throw for 5,000 yards. And he's got an additional receiver there to help him out.
Yep.
And Emmanuel Sanders. They still have Beasley. They still have Gabriel Davis. They still have Diggs. Their running backs aren't great, but you don't really need great running backs when you're a good running back as a quarterback, for one. You rushed for almost 500 yards last year and 8 touchdowns. So I've got Josh Allen as my MVP, just mainly based off of statistics. I mean, he put up great numbers last year. I think he's going to put up even better numbers this year.
Yeah, I can't argue with the fact that he put up great numbers, and I think he could obviously have an even better year this year. And I would not be shocked at all if Josh Allen won MVP. That's for sure. So I went with Patrick Mahomes simply because I think that their offensive line is going to be much improved, and I think that that's going to give him the ability to do even better than he normally does, if you can believe that that's possible. But I think it is, and that's why I went with Patrick Mahomes. But again, I would not be shocked if Josh Allen won MVP based off, like you said, his statistical output, because I think he's primed to have an even bigger year than he did last year. I just think that Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be on a mission this year, and that's what's going to drive that. So, but again, you can put Patrick Mahomes, as long as he's healthy, you could probably put him up there at the top of that list or in that conversation for the rest of his career. So I wouldn't be shocked if either one of those guys won, but I'm going to go with Mahomes. Going back to the top of the list, I originally had Micah Parsons as my defensive rookie of the year. For the same reason that you have him, he's going to stand out on that Dallas defense, which is not hard to do. He's going to have an opportunity to flash on the screen and make some big plays. He showed that in the preseason, that ability to do that as well. So I wouldn't be, again, surprised if he won. I went with Patrick Surtain the second because I think he's gonna have more opportunity to shine because of the division he plays in. And Denver's defense is really good, and I know it's harder to stand out on a good defense, but you got to pick on somebody or try to pick on somebody when you're going against a good defense. And I think that him being a rookie, he's going to get tested a lot early in the season. He's going to have an opportunity to shine, come up with some interceptions, defensive pass breakups, and things of that nature. So I'm going with Patrick Surtain the second as my defensive rookie of the year. Again, I made a switch last minute on my pick here with offensive rookie of the year once the Patriots made their switch. I'm going to go with Mac Jones simply because I think not that he's more talented than Trevor Lawrence or anything like that. I think it's just his team's going to win more games, and that's going to look better on him. So that's why I went with him. I think Trevor Lawrence is probably going to put up better stats because his team's going to be behind and he's going to be throwing a lot more. But I went based off the fact that I think Mac Jones is probably going to have more wins, and that's why he'll probably win. He'll get a lot of credit for things that the coaching staff does for him. I went with Defensive Player of the Year. My guy, he's not my guy, but he is my guy because I really like him a lot. He won Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. I think he's going to just jump up and take Defensive Player of the Year this year. Chase Young from Washington. Obviously, we know all about him. He's a beast from the same school as Nick Bosa and his brother Joey Bosa. Out of the three, I think Chase Young, and I hate to say this because I love Nick Bosa, I think Chase Young is head and shoulders above those guys. I think it's going to come down to him and Aaron Donald. And the fact that Aaron Donald has won the last couple and he's always in that conversation, you know how it goes. A lot of these writers and things, they don't like to give it to the same guy over and over again, which is why like LeBron doesn't win the MVP every year. Patrick Mahomes doesn't win it every year. So I think that's going to play a factor as well. I also have a running back as my offensive player of the year, but it's Derrick Henry, just because I think he's going to continue on that surge that he's been on the last few years. In one of my bold predictions, we'll get to it, I don't think that any individual season records will be broken this year, but I think if there is one that will be broken, that's the one that will be broken is the rushing record because of Derrick Henry and how he comes on at the end of every season. When that weather changes, he turns into a different animal. And, his production just goes up and up and up. So I have him as my offensive player of the year. Comeback player of the year was tough for me, but I'm going to base it off of just how gruesome Dak's injury was. I liken it, although it wasn't as bad, I liken it to Alex Smith's injury in the fact, he was hurt. His leg was broken pretty much in the same way, compound fracture, things like that. Alex Smith did not have a phenomenal year last year. He won some games. He made a difference for Washington. I wholeheartedly believe had he not played at all, they would not have made the playoffs. But he didn't have a phenomenal year, and he won Comeback Player of the Year based off of what he came back from. And I think that's why Dak wins this. Now, I think Nick Bosa has better, when you break it down, he's going to have a hell of a season. And probably, if there's a way to compare him, he will probably be more productive at his position than Dak will be at his position. Yeah. But I think based off number one, Dak's a quarterback, so he's going to get more of the glory and things like that when they do win. And the injury that he's coming back from is what's going to make him Comeback Player of the Year. And the fact that he's able to even get back on the field right now gives him a head start on that award. Because I'll be honest with you, when it first happened, I didn't anticipate him playing at all for the rest of last year or this year because it looked that bad. So the fact that he's back is something to be celebrated in itself. Even though I'm not a Cowboys fan, it's amazing to see him back so quick. So. And then, of course, like we talked about, I got Mahomes as my MVP. But really, you could probably call him and choose him for MVP every year. And I'm just going with him because I think he's going to have a phenomenal year behind that revamped offensive line.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to piggyback on your Patrick Surtain pick. Patrick Surtain the second. I think he's a great player, and he definitely has the chance to be great and win that defensive rookie of the year. And truth is, for Denver's sake, I hope he does, because if I'm a fan of Denver right now, I'm still a little bit upset that I picked a defensive back over a quarterback, namely Mac Jones, who was available when they picked. So, yeah, I get it. They got Bridgewater, but Bridgewater and Locke are not Mac Jones. By the end of their careers, they won't even be in the same realm stats-wise. And, yeah, so for Denver's sake, I hope Patrick Surtain II does play really well. I hope that he gives them an amazing boost on defense, because otherwise is a wasted pick, in my opinion. They should have went quarterback. You know, if I'm a fan, I agree that even general managers around the league, you know, probably were shocked that Denver didn't go quarterback. I'm not sure what Elway was thinking, but I certainly would have went for Mac Jones when I picked.
All right. So let's go ahead and bounce it over here to our championship predictions. We'll start with the NFC. I was shocked to see that we both had the same pick, and the fact that we both picked our team to lose in the championship game. It broke my heart. I went back and forth when I was going through my scenarios. How could the season play out? You know, who do I think is going to be a playoff contender? Where will they finish? Things like that. I think that Tampa Bay ends up with the #1 seed in the NFC, and I think that is going to be probably the biggest factor, is that home field advantage. And then if you think about it, it really, in the playoffs, it comes down to experience and confidence and who can you trust. And until somebody, you know, beats Tom Brady at his own game, I think that you have to stick with him. I think what I think is going to happen is Trey Lance is going to be the 49ers starting quarterback by the end of the season. And I envision something similar to what happened to Patrick Mahomes in his first season as a starter, where, again, it came down to a coin toss as to whether they are, you know, going for their 4th straight Super Bowl appearance this year. So I see something like that happening, where Trey has to go through his learning experience and take that L before he comes back and realizes this is what it takes to get us over the hump. So something similar to the Kaepernick, you know, years when he came in and took us all the way to the Super Bowl, and then, you know, we ran into that juggernaut Baltimore defense. Yeah. And, you know, he almost brought us back, but we didn't quite finish the deal. And the next year they came back and were very close again, and unfortunately, you know, had a tipped interception in the end zone against Seattle that ended those hopes of getting back to the Super Bowl. But I can see that happening with Trey Lance. He's going to probably have to take a L. And if Jimmy Garoppolo is still the starting quarterback by the end of the season, again, I think it's the same thing as what it was when we played Kansas City. Is as good as he is especially against a defense like Tampa Bay, if they're healthy, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is enough to get us over the top. Unfortunately, as much as I would love to see us back in the bowl and win it, because the last 2 we've lost. I just see Tampa Bay coming out of the NFC, and until Tom Brady's no longer their quarterback, I don't see anybody beating them.
Yeah, I mean, until someone, you know, knocks them off their throne, they're the champions. They have the best quarterback that ever's played football, you know, on their roster, and they brought back every single starter. They don't have any health issues. You know, they didn't have health issues last year. They didn't have health issues through the offseason this year. They don't have health issues going into the season. So there's a lot to be said about that when you know, every practice rep, every training camp rep, every offseason rep, you know, your first team reps are constantly with the players you're going to be playing in games with. You know, you're not interchanging players. You're not taking your wide receiver 3s and 4s and mixing them in with the 1s because of injuries. Same on the defensive side of the ball. You're not mixing your 3s and 4s and 5s in with your starters because you're not battling injuries. So the timing should be there, the continuity, everything should be there already for Tampa Bay. Honestly, they should hit the ground running right out of the gates because they haven't had to really battle a ton of adversity, with the exception of the beginning of last season when they first started playing together. You know, Brady was a little bit off, you know, in his timing with his receivers. Offensive line had some issues. But since then, they played lights out. and they haven't had to battle with any adversity, not on injuries, not, player egos or anything. They bring back every starter. They have the same head coach. Everything pretty much remains the same in Tampa, and that's a recipe for success. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Yep, I agree. I agree 100%. And like you said, it really started once they had their bye week last year. They haven't lost a game since then. I don't think, and and like you said, they should hit the ground running this year because they've got the full off season training camp. All the practices off OTAs, things like that. So I agree with you. If you were able to bring back everything that you had when you won the Super Bowl, that's a recipe for success. And until somebody beats you, there's no reason to think that you'll lose when it matters the most. So
it's super rare in the NFL that anything like this happens. And it's not just that they brought back all starters. They have remained healthy.
Yep.
Since this team has been together, they've been healthy. They haven't had any nagging or long-term injuries to any of their main players or their starters. And even their backup players, just as an example, Leonard Fournette in the playoffs, he's not considered their starting running back, but he played lights out in their Super Bowl push. Now, the reason why I have the 49ers making it is because top to bottom, I believe they're the most balanced team if they stay healthy, and they have the best offensive-minded coach in the league coaching them. They have two capable quarterbacks now. It's not like if one goes down, we're bringing in a CJ Beathard or a Nick Mullins who, should be just managing the game. I think Shanahan asked them to do a lot more last year and the year before that those two quarterbacks were capable of, instead of just asking them to manage the game. And with Lance or Garoppolo, I don't think that either one of them have to manage the game. I think they're perfectly capable of doing whatever Shanahan asked them to do. And their defense, of course, is extremely good when healthy. Even with injuries last year, they were still a good defense. So, we can't count them out entirely, even with a few injuries. I think they will be right back in the fold. They will win the NFC West, and they'll be right there in the NFC Championship game this year.
Yeah. To be obviously, full transparency, I would not be shocked if of course, healthy, that if we did make it back and we beat Tampa Bay. I'm again basing it off the fact that until you beat them, you have to go with the champ. So.
Exactly.
I agree with everything you said about the Niners and asking the backups to do too much in the last couple of years, and hopefully that will be fixed with our quarterback situation now. Knock on wood. Hopefully we don't have any injuries, but if we do, I feel definitely confident that Trey Lance can come in and do exactly what Shanahan asks of him, and keep the ship afloat.
Yeah, we're in a really unique position. I could imagine something like this. They kind of been talking about it since Shanahan, deployed that 2 QB system the other day. But I could see something where, depending on their matchup on a week-to-week basis, they rotate quarterbacks. If they've got a defense they know has a hard time, stopping the read option, or mobile quarterbacks, they play Lance a little bit more. I think both quarterbacks are going to have a lot of playing time this year, in all honesty. I think it's going to be very situational. Shanahan's smart enough to where, when he gets in a certain situation, he's going to go, this player right here is going to give us the best chance to win. And not just a game. It could be this player right here is going to give us the best chance to win this series.
Yep.
Win this, go get this first down or convert this third down, so I think there's going to be a lot of interchanging at the quarterback position with the 49ers this year. It's going to be really strange, but if there's anyone that could pull it off, I think it's Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, I agree with that. Quarterback by not necessarily committee.
Isn't that weird?
But I agree that they're going to have different packages. All right, let's go ahead and jump over to the AFC Championship predictions. Again, very similar with both of us having Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. Surprise, surprise. I think this will be the fourth year in a row. We do have a different opponent for them. You went with Buffalo, obviously. I know you're high on Josh Allen and what Buffalo may do this year. I went with Baltimore, and really I went with Baltimore. I made this pick before Dobbins got hurt, but again, as I mentioned earlier, I do believe Gus Edwards is going to be able to step in and pretty much produce the same, put up the same level of production as Dobbins would have put up. Again, Lamar Jackson is their number one running back. Let's just call it what it is. So I think that their defense is, again, elite level, like I talked about earlier. I'm going to go with Baltimore mainly because you can't pick Kansas City every year. It is super tough to get back to those championship games and those Super Bowls every year. As you know, we've watched a lot of football over the years. I've only seen a couple of teams get to that level consistently year after year. Buffalo was one of them back when they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. The Eagles, when they made it to their 4 or 5 NFC championship games in a row. Obviously, the Patriots with Tom Brady. And I obviously see Kansas City on the same level, if not better than most of those teams other than the Patriots. Again, it's tough to win it every year. I'm going to go with Baltimore simply because I feel like at some point, the ball's not going to bounce Kansas City's way. They've been very fortunate with a lot of things going their way. Granted, they have uber talent. They have talent all over the field at pretty much every position, which is the main reason they win. But a lot of luck goes into winning the Super Bowl and getting that deep every year. And I think that this year could be one of those years where maybe they get a break or two that doesn't go their way, and it maybe goes Baltimore's way. And there was a couple other teams I thought about going with Buffalo. I even thought about maybe Cleveland in that position playing against Kansas City. But again, I think Baltimore is really focused. They had a great finish to the season last year. They came on strong. They didn't start off as good as they liked, but they came on strong. Granted, they came up short at the end, but I think they build off of what they were building at the end of the year and complete the task as far as making it to the Super Bowl. I'll talk about, what I think will happen between them and Tampa Bay on our next slide, but I think Baltimore has enough, and I think that they are coached well enough, as I talked about earlier. Kansas City is coached very well also, but I think that Baltimore is just going to get a few breaks to go their way this year, and that's who I have in the Super Bowl for the AFC. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, well, with Kansas City, you're right. I mean, they're too good to not have in this conversation. But with that said, I think with Buffalo, it's not a matter of Kansas City's offense regressing. It's a matter of Buffalo's offense progressing. And I think this is the year where offensively Buffalo outmatches Kansas City head to toe, and they're able to keep pace with them. Their defenses are really similar, talent-wise. So I think it all boils down to the offenses with these two teams. And I think, top to bottom, Buffalo now has a better offense than Kansas City does.
Wow.
Not by much. I'm not saying that Kansas City has a bad offense, but Kansas City just lost Sammy Watkins. They do still have Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. They upgraded their O-line, but they did lose some pieces, and Buffalo, they didn't lose anything. They gained a good receiver. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders is a really good receiver. There's no denying that, So from wide receiver 1 to wide receiver 4 on Buffalo's roster, any one of those guys are capable of producing. And they even have a decent tight end in Knox. Outside of Tyreek Hill and Kelsey on Kansas City's offense, I don't really see the options. I don't see who's going to step in and produce. You do have CEH, but I mean, he produced in a limited fashion last year. Maybe the upgraded offensive line helps him out this year. I think it will a little bit. Yeah. But as of right now, I believe that Buffalo has progressed offensively enough to surpass Kansas City and make it to the Super Bowl. Yeah. It's going to be a high-scoring affair if they meet.
Yeah, I agree with that. My only concern with Buffalo on offense really is their running game and their running back game and finding a consistent guy that they can go to. Obviously, Josh Allen gives them an element kind of like Lamar because he can run, he can move. He's sometimes and I know a couple years ago he was Buffalo's #1 running back, and he's a big guy. He can fill that role. Obviously, I was a little taken back when you said that. I agree they have a very good offense and they did add to it. I just think that Kansas City's talent level is still slightly better than Buffalo on offense, but it's a toss-up. Again, wouldn't be shocked if Buffalo made it to the Super Bowl, like you're predicting. Wouldn't be shocked if Kansas City made it back for a third straight year either.
No, I wouldn't be.
As I mentioned, I went with Baltimore simply because I didn't want to pick Kansas City for another year in a row. But I wouldn't be shocked if any of those teams that we discussed made it to the Super Bowl and represented the AFC in the big game. So,
I think Baltimore is going to have a tougher road ahead to make the Super Bowl than Buffalo. But if I'm just kind of thinking out loud, Buffalo will also have a pretty tough road. They're going to have a first place schedule, so we'll see. I mean, the segment's called "I Could Be Wrong" for a reason.
Yep.
And I'm high on Buffalo this year. They've shown a lot the last few years. I think this is the year. I don't think that many of these teams, I'm not saying Kansas City got worse. I don't think Baltimore got worse. I don't think any of those teams got worse. I just think Buffalo got better, and it's their year.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with them getting better. And again, I wouldn't be shocked if any of these teams made it to the Super Bowl. These would be my three favorites. I would say if there's anybody outside of them that may have a outside shot, I would say maybe Cleveland or Pittsburgh. But again, that's really stretching it. I think these three are the class of the AFC. So.
Yeah, right now I believe so too.
All right, cool. So let's go on. We both know we just gave our predictions for the championship game. So you got Buffalo versus Tampa in the Super Bowl. I have Baltimore versus Tampa in the Super Bowl. And I went ahead and I think that Tampa Bay is going to repeat as much as I, again, like Baltimore and what they have going and how well they're coached. Again, like we've been saying pretty much throughout the entire cast, pretty much until you beat the champs, you got to roll with them. So they brought everybody back. They've got Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback ever. They have an elite defense. If it's not the best defense, it is top 2 or 3 for sure. And again, really until they show signs of decline, which I don't anticipate, I don't really see anybody beating them again when it matters most. I don't think they'll go undefeated. I think they will lose a game or 2 at some point during the season, maybe even 3. But when it comes to playoff time, I don't see anybody rising to the occasion and putting together a complete game to be able to beat the champs right now if they have everybody intact as they do at this point. So that's my pick. I would say, again, you mentioned earlier you think the AFC Championship game is going to be a high-scoring affair. I think that this game right here could possibly be a high-scoring affair, even though they both have stout defenses. I would say if I had to, obviously this is way down the road, but if I was going to just throw a score out there, I could see Tampa Bay beating Baltimore, something along the lines of 27-23, 27-24 in that ballpark. It would be a competitive game. I just think that Tampa Bay's overall complete package is enough to keep them on top for at least another year.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay clearly is a force to be reckoned with. I have Buffalo beating Tampa in the Super Bowl, and it's based on just the Buffalo offense. And I know everyone mentions Buffalo's running game, when they talk about their offense, but they haven't really needed a running game much the last few years with Josh Allen tossing the ball. They probably will need to see a little bit more out of their run game this year. But I've got Buffalo in a very high-scoring game. I think both teams put up over 35 points if they meet in the Super Bowl. The main difference being that when Josh Allen, when he starts completing passes to the receivers, he's going to be able to open the field. This is where it comes in. This is where it's really important to have that, second, third, and fourth receiver, because last year I feel like if Kansas City, especially with their offensive line struggles, if Kansas City had a second, third, or fourth wide receiver option to go to instead of just Tyreek Hill or Kelsey, they may have been able to open that offense a little more, maybe create a little bit more space for Patrick Mahomes then to use his legs. And I think that's going to be the big difference in this Super Bowl, where Josh Allen is going to be able to create plays with his receivers, his second, third, and 2, 3, and 4 receivers. That's going to open up lanes for him to use his legs. And ultimately, the game's going to boil down to which quarterback produces the most with their legs. And we all know that Tom Brady is not a mobile quarterback. So that's who I'm giving the nod to. I'm giving it to Buffalo. Yep. And this is the only time right now that I'm picking against Tampa Bay to start the year, because they are defending champs, but I don't think they will be champions at the end of the year.
Yeah, I definitely think that, that could play out exactly the way that you described it. I would not be shocked if Buffalo and Tampa met, if it was a high-scoring affair. Obviously, both offenses, both offenses can put up points. Defenses are really good, but again, the league is geared towards scoring points no matter how good your defense is. So yep. I could definitely see a high-scoring game if those two teams meet up. And I would not be surprised if the Buffalo Bills won the Super Bowl at all. It's not the team that I expect to win, but I would not be shocked. I wouldn't be like blown over and blown away like, oh my gosh, the Bills won it. Yeah. They are a very good team. They have an MVP candidate at quarterback, and they have a solid defense. It's not elite, but it's solid. Really solid. And really, that's kind of all you need to be in the game. And like we talk about all the time, if you're in the game, you're in the game. You got a chance. Yeah. I definitely would not be shocked if that happened. I'm going with Tampa just because, again, until you beat them, they're the champs. So, all right, yep. Cool. So those
can't argue with that.
Yeah. So those are our division picks, our playoff predictions, conference championship, Super Bowl, everything like that. Of course, we could be and probably are wrong about all of it. Let's go ahead and move on to our next to last topic. Well, I guess our last topic, our bold predictions. I have a few more than you. I know you added one during this with Alvin Kamara, but we'll go ahead and jump over here. Yeah. Go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah. Mr. Kraft, famous Jameis. He's my guy. Listen, my bold prediction is that Jameis Winston is going to resurrect his career this year. He's going to throw for 5,000 yards, 32 plus touchdowns, and less than 12 interceptions. So I said earlier, reduce it by half. So if he could do that, he's gonna have a great season.
Yeah.
And right now, this is a bold prediction, but once the season starts, if at the end of the year he winds up with these numbers, everyone's going to say, well, he's always had the talent to do it, because he does. He's got the talent to do it. He's got an arm. He knows football. I mean, he is a champion. He won a national championship. He hasn't won a championship at the NFL level, clearly, but, he knows how to win football games. So I'm not writing him off just yet. He's got a great coaching system over there in New Orleans. And I just think that this is his opportunity to resurrect his career and show everyone that he can be an elite quarterback in this league, or at least, produce elite numbers. Just a little better sound decision making. And that's really the difference, his decision making, because his arm talent is there. And that's my bold prediction. Famous Jameis, Mr. Kraft, baby.
I agree that he could definitely do this. He's got the talent for it. If you remember when he came out of FSU, and it was him and Mariota was the debate. I'm not a Florida State fan, by the way. I hope they get whooped on tomorrow when they meet up with the Irish. Go Irish!
Yeah, buddy.
But I've always been a fan of Jameis Winston's talent. When he was a freshman at Florida State, I saw him do things that most quarterbacks dream about doing, and he did it on a regular basis at Florida State. Granted, he had a lot of talent around him. The talent he was playing was probably not on his level, but I definitely know that he's uber talented. I between those two, I predicted that he would have a better career than Marcus Mariota, and I think to this point, he might have had a slightly better career, but it's really still a toss-up. He has a prime opportunity with Sean Payton to, like you said, resurrect his career and turn it around. And if he's able to do that, then New Orleans is right back where they were, last year.
Like they don't miss a beat.
They don't miss a beat. So as far as based off of his prior performance, I agree this is a bold prediction. But if you just go off of his talent, it would not surprise me if he did do this. But the best prediction of future behavior is past behavior, and based off his past behavior, this would definitely be a bold prediction. So
I think Jameis even opens up a little bit more of the playbook for Peyton, given his arm strength compared to Drew Brees. Now, he's definitely not a Hall of Famer like Drew Brees, so I'm not saying that he's more talented or a better quarterback than Drew Brees, but, he definitely has a stronger arm than Drew Brees. And I think that element of his game is going to be pivotal for Sean Payton, in the play calling. And I think it's going to really open up Sean Payton's creativity to help unleash Jameis Winston. And that's going to play a big role in his ability to reach that 5,000 yards and that bold prediction of mine.
Yeah, I agree with that as far as he adds an element of the deep ball. If you watched that last preseason game where he basically won the job, those 2 touchdown passes that he had, I think really is exactly what you're talking about. And
probably secured his job.
It gives Sean Payton that ability to dial up those plays that he hadn't called probably in 4 or 5 years, so that opens up a whole new realm of his playbook and could possibly, again, give New Orleans that added dimension that they were missing to keep them, like we said, where they're at, and they don't miss a beat. Again, until I see it, it's hard to say that it'll happen. So again, I think for now it's still going to be a bold prediction, but who knows? Maybe halfway through the season, this becomes what's expected of him because of how well he's playing. So
I'm just going to tell you right now, stash him on your fantasy roster, bro.
Yeah, I got another quarterback in mind to stash. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and move over to my bold predictions. I've been telling you this since way early in training camp. I think that Ben Roethlisberger is not the starter for the Steelers at the end of the season, and it doesn't have anything to do with injury. I think Dwayne Haskins is going to be the starter for the Steelers by midseason. I could be wrong. I'm just basing it off the fact that his age obviously gives him more upside than Big Ben. Big Ben has all the experience. He has all the accolades. As I mentioned earlier, he's a warrior on the football field. But I think that Mike Tomlin at some point realizes as long as Dwayne Haskins keeps progressing like he has been and like what I've been reading, I think at some point he just basically takes the job from Ben Roethlisberger because he's in a much better position than he was in Washington. You got to remember, this guy is super talented. He was a not a number one overall pick, but he was a first-round draft pick. He played really well when he was at Ohio State, so he's got the talent. It's just a matter of him being in the right position, I think, and being with Mike Tomlin, who's a no-nonsense kind of coach. Again, that's something I think Dwayne Haskins needs. And I think it's going to pay off for him. Again, that's why they call these bold predictions, because I'm probably wrong, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think you're probably wrong about that one. If Roethlisberger's healthy, there's no way he's getting benched for Dwayne Haskins. There's not a lot of quarterbacks that I would bench a healthy Roethlisberger for, let alone Dwayne Haskins. So, it's definitely bold. Haskins does have some talent. Tomlin is a great coach. I just don't see any need. If Roethlisberger's healthy and they're winning games, I couldn't imagine Tomlin saying, "Here, let me throw this wrench, in our season here. Let me go ahead and just kind of rock the boat while we're winning games." If they're losing games, yeah, I could see that. But if they're making a playoff push with Roethlisberger, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense to make a switch at quarterback with Haskins. If it was a rookie quarterback coming in, maybe someone they drafted this year, like if they had drafted Trey Lance or Mac Jones or Fields or someone, I just it doesn't make any sense to me to do it with Haskins, who's already been in the league a few years and hasn't really shown much on the field. If they're losing games, possibly. If they're winning games and Roethlisberger's healthy, I mean, again, I'm no head coach, but it just wouldn't make any sense to me to, rock that boat.
No, I definitely agree. And if they start out like they did last year, obviously this prediction is not going to happen at all.
Yeah, 11-0.
I don't anticipate that though. I think that they start out about 500, and that's why they make the switch. In my opinion, of course, obviously, if they're going 9-0, whatever, at this point in the season they're 8-0, whatever it is, by week 9, 7-1, something like that, then I agree with you. They're not going to make the switch just to make the switch and rock the boat. But I don't think, as much as I trust their defense and I think that they're going to have, a good finish the season out well, I think it's very possible that they start out on a rocky road, getting used to the new pieces on the offensive line, things like that. Some new roles for different players. So, I think they're moving Juju back to the slot, moving Claypool out to the outside. So going to be a little adjusting, and I think that could be something that they hit some stumbling blocks to start the season. Although their defense is going to be really good, I think on offense they may hit some hurdles, and that opens the door up for Dwayne Haskins to move in there. So again, it is definitely a bold prediction. And when I thought about it, I was like, do you really want to say this? But yeah, I think it's definitely possible if they start out, 500, 4-4, something like that. I could see them making the switch if they feel Haskins is going to give them more on offense.
Yeah, let's just make clear, folks. This is a bold prediction.
Exactly. And then I'll go on to my second one here. And again, I made this one after the Patriots made their switch. I think 3 rookie quarterbacks are going to start a playoff game this year. As I predicted earlier, I think Justin Fields ends up being the starter for Chicago. I think Trey Lance takes over at some point for the 49ers. And then obviously we know Mac Jones is going to be the starter for New England. And I think that all 3 of those teams, Fields is the wild card, but I think definitely the Patriots and the 49ers make the playoffs. And if the Bears make that switch early enough in the season, I think that Fields gets them over the hump and gets them in the playoffs as well. So that's another bold prediction I have. I think 3 rookie QBs start a playoff game, and I'm going to predict that at least one of them wins at least one playoff game, and that's my man Trey Lance. So
yeah.
We know this year is the biggest season ever. They got 17 regular season games, so that adds an extra year. Not extra year, but an extra game for players to add stats and things like that. I'm going to go with another bold prediction. I touched on it earlier. I think that 0 single season individual records get broken this year, even though there is an extra game. As I mentioned, the only one I think would probably be in jeopardy, if there is going to be one that's broken, will be the rushing record for Derrick Henry, because he was so close last year and the year before that. So if any of them get broken, I think that's the one that's in jeopardy. But I honestly think, even though there is an extra game, I think teams are going to, I hate to use the term, but I think teams are going to load manage at times. And players are not going to be on the field as much during the beginning and middle part of the season to get those extra stats to put them up over those and break those records that are out there. I could be wrong, but again, I just think because there's an extra game, teams have to think about managing their players and their playing time a little differently. And you're gonna see players when the game is out of hand, it's going to be kind of like college, where if the game gets out of hand, they're going to start taking players out. Whereas normally your starter stays in the game for pretty much the entire game, no matter whether you're winning or not. So I think you're going to see some strategy change around that, which is going to lead to none of the records being broken. And then the last one here, I don't know how bold it is. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying I like the rookie quarterbacks making the playoffs. I think all 5 of those first-round rookie quarterbacks that were drafted are going to have good, if not great, careers. And this is probably the strongest quarterback draft class that I've ever witnessed drafted. I can't wait to see the next 5, 10 years, 15 years of them playing football on their respective teams. But I think that each one of the teams that drafted these quarterbacks, Lawrence, Wilson, Lance, Fields, and Mac Jones. They all got studs, man. And to me, this is probably the strongest draft class I've ever seen. And then the preseason play from each one of these guys, kind of just solidified that for me, because they all played really well in their own right, and there's clearly going to be deficiencies, coming from college to the NFL, but they all played well. They all have adjusted well. There's a lot of excitement around them. So I think that's a good prediction there. It's a very high possibility that 3 rookies wind up making the playoffs, and even one of them wins. Hopefully Trey Lance is the one that wins that one, and they go even deeper on into the playoffs and into a Super Bowl victory. But we'll see. I'm not trying to fly the room on us.
Yeah, I agree. Please don't do that. And then my last bold prediction, I don't know how bold it is, but I think that in the biggest season ever, the Houston Texans finish 0-17. And
You'll be the first 0-17 team?
They'll be the first 0-17 team in the first 17-game season
ever.
It. So I think this, out of all of these, to be honest with you, I would say that this one's probably the least bold. It's probably the most likely. Houston finishes 0-17 because, frankly, they're just not good. And they've got so much turmoil going on with the quarterback and everything. They lost J.J. Watt, who, again, we talked about the Cardinals losing Larry Fitzgerald. They lost their leader. Houston lost their leader too. So I think they're just a team that's in shambles right now, and it's going to take a while before they figure it out and get some new. They need to change the culture is what they need to do, and it takes a long time.
The Texans are the new Browns.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So, all right. So that's all I got with my bold predictions. I know you had one earlier. You said Alvin Kamara hits 100 catches this year. I think that's a bold prediction too. So we'll see how that
goes.
It's
really bold. But I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility. I mean, truth is, he's the best receiver on their team right now.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to take that into consideration. I would agree. Obviously, you can't play Mike on the roster, who won't be there until midseason. So if then he might be out even longer than that. So, and we know that they had issues in the offseason where he basically doesn't want to be there in practice or anything like that anyway.
Yeah.
So who knows? He might figure out a way to not play the entire season and get out of there. So
yeah,
and that would be interesting too. Maybe that's another bold prediction. Can't play Mike, doesn't play any games this year. Hey.
Yeah, it's pretty bold.
All right, so that's all we got. We certainly appreciate it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and be on the lookout for us here in a couple of days when we give our Week 1 preview, break down a few of the games, and give our picks for the week, as well as a couple of fantasy predictions and things like that along the way. So again, I appreciate your time, bro. It was always good talking to you.
It's good chatting with you as always.
I love talking football with you. So we'll get together soon. I will see you at the fantasy draft in a couple of days. And everyone, thanks. I hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you guys soon.